Okay. Um, so I'm going to lead us in Jesus Loves Me, and then Lucas has a couple songs that he's going to lead us in. So, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. It's all yours, man.
Blue skies and rainbows and sunbeams from heaven, the one I can sing with my Lord is living in me. I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. The end draws near, and my time has come. Still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years until forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship your holy name.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for worshiping with us. I love hearing everybody singing. So we're going to continue our story about David, and I feel like every week, I feel like the story of David is super exciting, and it makes me wonder what's going to happen next. And tonight is like that. I feel like it's one of those stories that sort of keeps you on the edge of your seat because you don't know what everybody is going to do. So make sure you have your listening ears on. Okay, here we go. So here's Saul. Okay, he's the king right now. And he has been looking for David. If you remember in our story from last week, he had been searching for David all over the place, but David had some really good friends. We talked about being a good friend, being kind last week. And they helped him escape because Saul wanted to kill David. That's terrible. Well, he is still looking for David, and God has been keeping him safe. So Jonathan is friends with David. He's warned him all about his dad, the king's bad intentions to hurt him. And so David went to the priests of Nod. While he's there at with the priests, they give him the sword of Goliath. Does anyone remember who Goliath was? Raise your hand if you remember us talking about Goliath. When we talked about him, Mr. Matt came up here and he put Finn on his shoulders, remember? And they were huge. Goliath was a big guy. You remember? And so they gave him Goliath's sword because Goliath isn't around anymore. Remember the Philistines were fighting? And David came out and threw that rock at him and killed him. God has been taking care of him every step of the way. And it's true tonight too. So King Saul is out there looking for him. David has the sword of Goliath. And he also has God on his side. Well, there's Saul. He's looking around everywhere for David. And let me look at my notes. So the priests who gave David the sword, Saul finds them. And he says, I need to know where David is. He's terrible. I'm trying to kill him. The priests say, well, we were with David and he seemed like a really good guy. He was honorable. He was righteous. That means that he was good. And we didn't know that you were looking for him. So Saul goes to look for him. Well, while David is escaping, he runs into the Philistines again. But God's with him, so he fights off the Philistines and he gets away. Right behind him, Saul comes through looking for David and he fights off the Philistines. But David's already safely away. So Saul decides he needs another tactic. He decides to get 3,000 soldiers, really special soldiers who are good at fighting and finding people. 3,000 of them, and they all start looking for David. Well, they go to look for David in a place called the Rocks of the Wild Goats. Can you say that? The Rocks of the Wild Goats. That's a funny name. Okay, so they are looking for him in the Rocks of the Wild Goats, and when they get to the place where all the sheep are, they go to a cave. See them? They're looking in a cave. Okay? Well, guess who's already in the cave hiding? Yes! It's David and all of his men. They're all the way in the back of the cave, and Saul doesn't know that they're back there. Well, Saul goes into the cave all by himself. Are you on your seat? Are you on the edge of your seat? I told you, this one is going to have you on the edge of your seat. Okay, Saul goes all the way back into the cave, all by himself. And David's men, they're talking there, and they say, David, this is your chance. This guy who's in the cave all by himself, he's been trying to kill you. This is your chance to take care of it. Take care of the problem. Well, that's kind of a big deal to kill someone. And David is thinking about that, and he says, look, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. God chose Saul to be the king. I'm not going to kill him. So, instead, when Saul's not looking, David takes out his sword and he cuts off the edge of Saul's robe without him even knowing it. And then Saul leaves. He gets away. But that's not the end of the story. Saul goes back out to his army, and David shouts down to Saul. He says, Saul, look at your robe. I was in the cave, and look at your robe. And he holds up. What do you think he's holding up right there? The piece of his robe. He's showing him, look at how close I was. But I did not hurt you. And I could have. Well, Saul and David talk. And David reminds him, I know that God has chosen you to be king, and so I'm honoring that, and that's why I didn't hurt you. This means a lot to Saul. David saved his life, or he spared his life. That means that he could have hurt him, but he did not. And David says, why are you trying to chase me? Why would you listen to these men who are lying to you? I'm not going to hurt you. And this is when Saul says our memory verse for this week. He says to David, you are more righteous than I am. For you have rewarded me with good, and I have repaid you with evil. He says, I see now that you are good. He says, even I know that you are going to be a good king. And then he asks something from David, the man that's just spared his life. He says, I need to ask you one more thing, because I know that you are going to be king. God has chosen you to be king. But when that happens, will you please, please, please promise to not hurt my family? Because what would happen is when a new king became the new king, he would remove the other family. And David is a good man. Remember, he's righteous. God is in his heart. He's listening to God, and he says, I promise, I will not hurt your family. And he lives up to that promise. He does not hurt Saul's family. So after this, Saul goes home, and David goes on his way, and it ends very happily. I like a happy ending. How about you? Me too. Okay, we have some questions on your table and also a craft. I'm going to go ahead and share with you really quickly the craft, so then I don't have to get back up here and you guys can just power through at your own pace, okay? The directions for the craft look like this, and there's a picture at the bottom. What you're going to do is pretty much make this picture your own, okay? With the brown paper, you're going to draw rocks, big rocks on here. And then with the black paper, you're going to use your scissors to curve the pointy edges of this square any way you want it to be. And this is going to become the mouth of the cave. Not like this kind of mouth, but it is an opening to the cave where David would have gone in with his men and where Saul went in by himself. Okay, the opening of the cave. But look, you should also have some little men at your table. This is your David, and you have some tiny little pieces of cloth. And if those fell on the floor, I can get you some more. And that's going to be the cut off piece of the robe that you can glue on there on David's hand so he can show Saul, look what I did, and I didn't hurt you. I just got your robe. Okay? On the rocks, if you get to this point, you can also put different parts of the story sentences on those rocks, or maybe just part of the memory verse, whatever you want to do. Okay, and there's questions for you to talk about as a family. All right, that's it. Go.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Please help everyone in the hospital get better. Please help the people with COVID get better. In Jesus' name, amen.